Welcome everyone to the Thursday edition of Fair Territory. Sorry for the little bit of a late start. We had some technical difficulties. I'm Ken Rosenthal. We are here with Alana Rizzo. And Alana, it seems like your attire is a little bit different today.
Yeah,
Can you
technical
please explain?
difficulties. I can. Technical difficulties, wardrobe malfunction. The only reason, Ken, I am wearing this is because I lost a bet to Jeremy Meyer, our wonderful producer. I am a Broncos fan. It is the Patriots that are going to the Super Bowl. So I am a woman of my word. I am fulfilling my bet. More on that coming up in Dude and Dork of the Week. Much more entertaining things to talk about, though, with you. Baseball, let's talk about it. You had a one-on-one with Mark DeRosa, manager of Team USA. How do you see this team, Ken, for the WBC kind of shaping up under the leadership of Mark DeRosa?
Well, as I wrote in that story today, Alana, this is the strongest WBC team the USA has fielded. And this is the sixth WBC, so we've had something of a history now. And Team USA won in 2017, but if you compare the two rosters, they're not even close. And I go through that in the story. And the biggest thing that has changed over the years is the willingness of superstar major leaguers to participate in this tournament. For a long time, understandably so, there was reluctance. Why am I disrupting my spring training? Teams were, of course, not into it. They still aren't into it for the most part. But the last WBC, the one in 2023, was so electric, so much a tribute to the sport and all that the sport can be. It swayed a lot of people. It swayed a lot of fans. It swayed a lot of players. It may have even swayed some teams to say, okay, we get it. And for those fans out there who are critical of the WBC, I understand you don't want your players disrupted. You want them simply devoted to their teams, your favorite teams. I will only say this: watch the games. Watch this sport at its highest level. And that's what it is. When you have all these great players from all these different countries competing in one tournament, you see elite baseball. And that is what we saw the last time. Just so happened we got a slew of dramatic games as well. So I'm expecting that the tournament is going to be just as much fun this year. And again, Aaron Judge, Cal Raleigh on one team with Bobby Witt, with Corbin Carroll, with all these other superstars, Bryce Harper. Then you have Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens heading the starting rotation. That's pretty good.
Really good, Ken. And, there have been some times where, and we'll talk about it a little bit too, Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve not participating because of an insurance issue. But Clayton Kershaw, Ken, had that same issue the last time the WBC came around, but he's retired now. And Mark DeRosa has Clayton Kershaw on his team. What more can you tell us about his role, his perceived role?
I remember Kershaw was disappointed in 23 when he wasn't cleared by insurance. And we'll explain that in a second, Alana, as you said. But in this particular instance, with him now retired and not affiliated with any major league franchise, he is actually going to play potentially an important role for Team USA, because there could be a circumstance that comes about where they need a long man, where you need a guy to suck up 4 or 5 innings, because so many pitchers in this tournament for USA and other countries as well will be under restrictions imposed by their teams. In many cases, most cases, understandable restrictions, because of course it's the middle of spring training. You don't want your starting pitchers going 7 innings. You don't want necessarily your relievers going back-to-back days. And in the last tournament, in 2023, DeRosa explains this in the article, they got caught. They got caught in a game against Mexico because they basically ran out of pitching. They had to kind of have Brady Singer wear it a little bit. And in the next game, which was against Canada the next day, Team USA was very fortunate that Lance Lynn went 65 pitches and 5 innings because basically they were out of pitching. So Kershaw will serve that role as basically someone who mops it up if necessary, whether in a route in the USA's favor or in the other team's favor. And that is actually an important role. He might never pitch. He might end up pitching 4 innings in one game. He might end up pitching 1 inning. But to have a guy like that not affiliated with a team is valuable, because if you had a major league pitcher in that role and you're telling his team, hey, we might not pitch him, we might pitch him a lot. That major league team is not going to be satisfied with that answer.
Ken, is that why the Giants are asking Logan Webb to take a pass on the WBC?
The Giants are asking him to take a pass on the WBC for the same reason every team would prefer their top pitchers and players not to play. It's the risk of injury, it's all that, and teams just have concerns. Understandably, because there's a lot of money invested in these players and you don't want to see them get hurt. But Alana, we were talking about this off air, and I want to hear your thoughts on air about how the risk in the WBC, while it's there, it's not necessarily a greater risk than pitching in spring training. Yes, the stress level is higher, but you could get hurt in either environment.
No question about that. You can get hurt just as easily in spring training, Ken, and no one's making a big deal out of it because obviously you're working out. Accidents and injuries happen, but you could easily get hurt in the WBC, and people are blowing that, what I believe, they're blowing it out of proportion. But think about it. I mean, you could walk outside and get, stumble over a log or slip on ice or fall up the stairs or whatever it is. I mean, there's ways to get hurt that have nothing to do with baseball. So allow your team to play for the WBC. I understand why teams are hesitant. I get it. These are highly paid players and, it's a commodity for the team, but it's an honor not to put on this jersey, this Patriots jersey, but it is an honor to put on a WBC Team USA jersey. That being said, Ken, it doesn't look like the Astros are going to allow Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa to play, or maybe it's more of an insurance issue for those two players because the Astros have had some injury-prone years as of late. What more can you tell us?
Well, what the Astros are saying and what the players are saying is that it is an insurance issue. Now, let me explain how this works. So, each player in the WBC has to be insured, and MLB and the union pick an insurer, and that insurer basically evaluates every player. And when it denies insurance because perhaps of past injuries, in Correa's case, or with Altuve, he had an off-season surgery, albeit a minor one, but he had one, then the team can go ahead and have the player play if they guarantee his salary. But if they don't, and most teams are not going to guarantee a player's salary if he's not insured, if they don't do that, then the player is risking losing his salary if he gets hurt during the WBC. So when a player like Correa is told you're not getting insured, he's not going to play and risk his entire salary because if he gets hurt in some freak way, he won't get paid. And that is obviously a huge risk. And you see this surface from time to time with different players. We talked about Kershaw in 23. Now, the Dodgers were not willing to guarantee his salary, so he didn't play. The Tigers, on the other hand, did make that exception for Miguel Cabrera. I'm not sure why. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but that's rare. You don't see a team say, go to go to the WBC. If you get hurt, we'll pay you. That doesn't generally happen.
No, it does not. Now, Chandler Rome, who does a great job covering the Houston Astros, you can also see him on Crush City Territory, had an article about what Carlos Correa was saying, Ken, about the injuries with the Astros. Quote, we had way too many injuries last year, and I feel like when I got here, people did not have the routine they needed to have in order for them to be able to withstand the whole season. That's coming from Carlos Correa. You can see it here more on Chandler Rome's story in The Athletic. I mean, is that kind of something that the leadership in terms of the players are feeling with Houston, Ken? I don't want you to speak for Carlos Correa, but injuries were an issue for that club last year.
Injuries have been an issue for this team for several years. If you go back to 24, Kyle Tucker had that stress fracture, I believe, in his shin that was misdiagnosed, and there have been a number of different things with the Astros over the years. I don't know what their protocols are. I don't know what the problem is, but Correa, who is generally one of the most honest players in the game, is speaking to conditioning, it sounds like, and routines as much as he is medical treatment. So what he's saying is that the players have to get their acts together, that the organization has to get its act together. And obviously, when you're a team the caliber of Houston, you don't want injuries, unnecessary injuries perhaps, compromising your season. And Correa is, while an injury-prone player in many ways, he's had a lot of stuff, he takes great care of himself. And He's a guy that is attuned to all of the physical aspects of the game.
All right, welcome back to Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal. It's time now to ask Ken some questions. The first one is in regards to the Braves. Ken, Tyler Max Smith wants to know, should the Braves add a right-handed bat to pair with Yaz in left field as a DH, especially with Kim and Murphy out to start the year? Could an Ozuna return make sense?
I hadn't actually thought about this, but with the injuries that they're dealing with Kim and Murphy out to start the year, it is something that perhaps they would consider. I don't know that it would be a guy like Ozuna that they'd have to pay a good amount of money to. Maybe it's a lesser player or even a non-roster player. There's still a lot of free agents out there, and some are going to have to take non-roster deals. Their biggest focus, of course, remains a starting pitcher. That is something they want to do, but it's something they haven't done yet. So that will be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Good question there.
All right. What starting pitcher are you surprised, Ken, is still on the free agent market? Perhaps maybe Framber Valdez and Zach Gallen. This is from Armand is Amazing. And maybe the question is, are you surprised that both of them are still available?
Yes, I am surprised both are still out there. We do see every year players linger and not get their values early in free agency and wait to see if they can get it later. Now, Framber Valdez and Gallen are two entirely different types, even though they're both qualifying offer free agents, both rejected qualifying offers, and therefore are subject to draft pick compensation. Valdez, it seems to me, it's his age, 32, perhaps what he is seeking that he is not getting. Perhaps that's part of it, that he's aiming too high. And certainly this cross up with Cesar Salazar, the rookie catcher last year, did not help his reputation within the game. And it seems to me, from the outside, I don't know this for a fact, that could be affecting his market. Gallen, I've discussed this in other places, I've written about it. He was perhaps the least accomplished of the players who rejected qualifying offers. And it seems that that kind of player every year kind of gets squeezed. And Gallen is a really good pitcher. He had a bad first 4 months and a pretty good last 2 months, a very good last 2 months. To me, he is worth 3 or 4 years, whatever it might take to get him. But it seems right now he's not getting it. And what I foresee for him is following the path that other Scott Boras clients have followed in recent years. Short-term deal, opt-outs, try again next year without the qualifying offer.
Yeah, kind of like the Cody Bellinger before he just signed the 165 with the New York Yankees. You mentioned the qualifying offer, Ken. How much do you think that being tied to a free agent player is a factor?
It definitely is. Now, it's not for the Juan Sotos of the world, the Kyle Tuckers of the world, Edwin Diaz. Teams factor it into the equation. We're losing 2 draft picks. That is additional cost to what the salary is going to be. But when the player is good enough, you're not going to be restricted by that. When you have a player who is good but not maybe elite, then you're like, maybe we don't want to do this. And also depends on a team's draft position at times. You can't lose your first rounder anymore, but you lose your second and fifth picks if you're a big market team signing one of these guys, and that is prohibitive, or at least a deterrent for some clubs.
This is a good question. I've often wondered this myself. This one comes from Ryan S7414. What's the biggest misconception readers have about anonymous sourcing, and how do you internally vet credibility before publishing? How do you become the insider that you are?
Well, the biggest misconception readers have about sourcing is when they try to figure out where stuff is coming from. Now, sometimes, yes, it is the obvious person you might think, or an obvious group of people you might think, but oftentimes stuff comes out of nowhere. Oftentimes there is not an agenda. People are always trying to read agendas, and it just kind of works in a variety of ways. And the other part of this is when you ask about vetting, that's a good question, because when you're in this position as a reporter, you have to understand that certain people in the industry, certain sources might be trying to use you, and you have to read that. Have I been 100% good at that or perfect at that in my career? No. There have been times where I've missed because I misread somebody, or was used, frankly, by that person. But you do your best. And for the majority of us who do this, our track records are very good. We don't miss very often. But there are times where, yeah, you have to be very understanding of where a person is coming from. And that was something that was taught to me early in my career. And again, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But over the years, I've tried to be as diligent about that as possible.
How much does trust play into your sources, Ken,
Everything.
and the relationship building and knowing who you can legitimately trust?
Alana, that's everything. And that goes both ways, by the way. It's not just me trusting the sources, it's the sources trusting me to handle a particular story or transaction, whatever the case might be, in the proper professional way. And it takes a long time to build that up. I often have, in fact, I had just yesterday a young person say, "Hey, how do I get to be an insider?" It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build your own credibility. It takes time for you to amass a group of sources or people in the game that will talk to you. And these things do not happen overnight.
Like anything, it's relationship building and trust, and you are one of the best at that. Coming up here on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal, we're talking about our dude and dorks of the week. We'll be right back. All right, Ken, there's been a lot of news this week, the last couple of weeks, about the Washington Post. I want to talk a bit about your dude of the week.
My dude of the week are the Washington Post sports writers, and all of the Washington Post sports writers that I've read and admired over the years. If you don't know what is happening at the Washington Post, basically there's talk of mass layoffs, the elimination potentially of the sports department and the international reporting department, which is one of the best in the world. And so many people at the Washington Post have been inspirations to me. I'm not going to name them all right here, but it's one of the best sports sections in the country. It has been one of the best sports sections in the country. I tweeted my thoughts the other day about the way it's been handled and all of that, but this is simply to express my admiration and also my concern for what is going on there to all my friends who work there and all my friends who have worked there in the past. So Washington Post sports writers, dude of the weeks.
Absolutely. Such talented, hardworking people. Certainly hoping for the best that situation resolves itself in a positive way. My dude of the week is the Colorado Rockies. And the reason I say that, and I don't often give them praise, I think they're headed in the right direction, though. And I like that with Paul DePodesta and obviously Walker Monfort taking over. But I am giving them the dude of the week because they're doing this. They are doing a statue unveiling of two Hall of Famers, of course, Larry Walker on August 23rd, Todd Helton, who I got the privilege of covering for a lot of his career in Colorado, on September 19th, obviously both in Cooperstown. And I like that they're doing it separately, so each man has his proper due. Congratulations, Rockies. You are my dudes of the week. All right, time now for our dork of the week. All right, Ken, you're going off the beaten path again this week. What is it?
I am, and I'm very happy to go off the beaten path for this particular group. The dork of the week, the dorks of the week, in my opinion, are the NFL Hall of Fame voters. Now, I understand that Bill Belichick didn't get put in on the first try because of some process questions with the voting. It's been a different process than in the past, and voters found it difficult to kind of sort through it. I get that all. All I'm saying is this one can't be blamed on the BBWAA. We had nothing to do with it. We heard all your complaints about our own votes and perhaps some justifiable complaints about our votes, but this has nothing to do with us. So I'm living large, I'm sitting pretty, and the NFL Hall of Fame writers, they're the dorks of the week.
That's right. It's about time. I don't like the Patriots. I can't stand the Patriots despite having to wear this stupid jersey. But Bill Belichick is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And anybody, I think there's been 59 Super Bowls and he's won 8 of them. So stop it. Okay. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I am my own dork of the week. I am not going to be enjoying the Super Bowl. And there you have it. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm the dork of the week. And Sean Payton, you too are the dork of the week. And by the way, why did we fire our offensive coordinator when Sean Payton is the one calling all of the offensive calls? Hey, whatever. It's fine. We do have one more question.
That was a rant worthy of your old partner, the Mad Dog.
Yes, yes. Seriously. But I'm doing it at a lower octave than Chris Russo would do. One more question for you, Ken, before we get to break here. Jim Huerta wants to know, can someone please wake up the Mariners? Ken, what are the M's doing?
Good question. And Josh Naylor was their big acquisition early, but we've all anticipated that in addition to getting the bullpen piece that they did with Jose Ferrer, which was good from the Nationals, we all thought they were going to get one more infielder. They still might get one more infielder. They've been linked to Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan has not been traded yet. There are other infielders that still might be available. So I would not judge the Mariners any more than I would have judged the Mets 2 weeks ago, when it seems their offseason is not complete. Still a long way to go before opening day, and heck, there's a week to go before spring training camps open, and that's not really a deadline of any sort. So give the Mariners a little bit more time before condemning them. That's what I would say.
Okay, a little bit more time. I'm still surprised Eugenio Suarez is still out there on the free agent market. I think a lot of people are surprised about that as well. All right, we appreciate you guys being here. Of course, if you are watching on TV, thank you so much. We're going to see you next time. We will have a couple more minutes on the YouTube side right after this. All right, welcome back. If you're still here, that means that you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate you guys very much. And Ken, we didn't necessarily want this to be a WBC preview, but there have been some additional announcements regarding the World Baseball Classic, particularly with Team Venezuela, Jackson Churrio, Ronald Acuna Jr., Wilyer Abreu, and Michael Garcia, all going to be part of the WBC. I love this for Team Venezuela. They have always been a force. Again, you said it earlier, but in case you're just joining us, this is good for the game, Ken. This is fun. You want these star players representing their countries.
And plus, what we've seen over the years in the WBC, and now we're seeing from our team as well, the U.S. team, is this sense of national pride. And Acuna and Churrio, these guys, the players from the Dominican Republic, the players from all the different countries, Japan especially perhaps, they love playing for their countries. They see it as an obligation to play for their countries. And Paul Skeens, when he talked to Mark DeRosa about playing for Team USA, he said, you don't have to twist my arm. You don't have to pitch me at all. I want to play for all the servicemen and servicewomen out there. Paul Skeens, of course, went to the U.S. Air Force Academy before LSU. So there is that growing sense of pride in playing for your country, and that is a really cool thing to see, and it adds a layer of emotion to this tournament that you just don't see in Major League Baseball on a regular basis. You'll maybe see that kind of emotion in the playoffs, of course, but in this tournament, you see it every night.
Yeah, Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado, birthplace to yours truly, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Let me ask you this, Ken. When do you think it was the shift of players not really caring about the WBC and all of a sudden clamoring to be called to play?
That shift took place really with U.S. players. There wasn't a shift necessary with players from other countries before that. But that 2023 WBC, if you remember, Trey Turner's grand slam against Venezuela in the quarterfinals, it was a go-ahead grand slam, amazing moment. And of course, the final against Japan, when Ohtani came in from the bullpen to face his then Los Angeles Angels teammate Mike Trout and strike him out to give Japan that victory in an amazing game, 3-2, Japan won. All of that and all of the games that preceded it that were so dramatic and so emotional and so just electric, that is what caused the shift among the U.S. players. The ones who maybe were reluctant before, suddenly they all wanted in.
Yeah, I love it. I'll never forget when Mike Trout walked out holding the U.S. flag and Shohei Ohtani walked out holding Team Japan. That was awesome. All right, thanks, guys, for watching and listening. Foul Territory is next. AJ Pierzynski, Eric Kratz, Scott Braun. Welcome, Jake Magnutham, Kyle Higashioka, and Adam June. Andrew Friedman joins Dodgers Territory. After that, Fair with Ken is back on Monday. We'll talk to you then.
今回も動画をご視聴いただき 誠にありがとうございました。今回の内容はいかがでしたでしょうか。もしよろしければ、チャンネル登録と高評価をしていただけると、今後の動画制作の励みになります。それでは、また次回の動画でお会いしましょう。